Good afternoon, everyone. We are learning Parshat Mas'eh, the journeys of the Jewish people, talking about the 42 journeys that the Jewish people took after they left Egypt. Why exactly did the Torah have to tell us this? There's different opinions why, and we'll learn some of those opinions. But let's look first of all briefly at some of them. Here we go. Eila, these are Masa'e ben Israel, the journeys of the Jewish people, Asher Yatsu, Meretz Mitzrayim, that they left from Egypt, or that they went out of Egypt, Litzivotam, to in their hosts, all of the armies, whatever the different types of Jews, and all of the group, they say the mass of the Jewish people, Biad Moshe and Aaron, and hand of Moshe and Aaron. We learned about this in the morning also. Okay, what are these journeys exactly? What are these journeys? There's also different pictures about what they are. Maybe we'll even look and find one of them. But the fact is that all of them were basically not necessary. I mean, the Jewish people got out of Egypt. They were supposed to have gone straight to receive the Torah, and then to immediately after that to the land of Israel. According to some opinions, they were supposed to just go over the Yam Suf and then go to Israel immediately. I guess they would have come back to receive the Torah, afterwards. Supposed to go to the land of Israel. But in any case, the Jewish people, they refused to go into the land of Israel. They didn't want to. They actually refused. That was with the spies we learned about in Parsha Shalach. And God said, okay, you don't want to go into the land of Israel, so your wishes come true. You won't go to the land of Israel. And they wandered for 40 years. And in that course of 40 years, they wandered all around. So you might think that the whole 40 years, they were just wandering around, like, every couple of hours, God said, okay, let's go, let's move. So 40 years, 40 journeys in 40 years, that's not so bad. And we'll see that it's really actually less than that. We'll see that most of the time they weren't journeying at all. So we have another question also. When it says Eile, these are, the word Eile comes to negate something that came before. Like to say that the Jewish people do this, but these are really the journeys of the Jews, not like the others. These are the journeys. If it would say ve'ele and these, that means to add on to what we learned before. But this is coming to negate something. Eila, these are really the journeys, not like what we learned before. Eila means this negates what we learned before. This is something new. And obviously it's not anything new. There's no news over here. So what is the Eila? So Rashi answers that question. Let's have a look and see. These are the journeys of the Jewish people that they left Egypt in their hosts by the hands of Moses and Aaron. Rashi. Lama nichtavu, why is it written, Hamasaot halalu, these journeys? Why do we care? Just say that they left. They wandered around for 40 years. And then they came to the land of Israel. Why do we have to have all these details? We know the big important details we already had before. But we had before that the spies came along and they refused to go in. And then when right near the end of the 40 years that Moses died, that Miriam died, and then Aaron died, and then Moses died. Those are the main things. It says Rashi, you're right. Those are the main things. And here's coming to tell you something different. It's not coming to add on and to erase anything we learned before. No, it's coming to tell you like this. Why are they written? Why are these journeys written? To let you know the kindness of God. Even though that God decreed on them that for 40 years you're going to wander around in the desert. I mean, when he made the decree, it already wasn't 40 years. It was already, the decree was already going into the second year that they were there. So let's say they had to wander around 38 more years, right? Loters, don't think that they were wandering around all of these 40 years. They left Egypt on the 14th day of the month of Nisan. And then almost 40 years later, just 5 days short, that's when they came into the land of Israel. They came in on the 10th day of Nisan. So it was almost 5. Okay, so don't think that the whole 40 years they were just one going around from place to place. 40 years. They made like 1,000 journeys, right? Every day, another journey. Every week, as soon as they got settled in, God drove them crazy. It's okay, you're moving again. No. In fact, it's not so. First of all, they only made 42 journeys. We'll count them. Shari, in Kanala Arbayim B'Shtayim Masot, there are only 42 journeys. Say, man, subtract from that number 14. Why? Shekulam Oyu B'Shana Rishona Kodam Gezerah. There were 14 journeys that they had to take before the decree with the spies that they were going to wander for 40 years. So when the decree came that they were going to wander for 40 years, 14 journeys had already taken place. They were supposed to journey 14 journeys, and then after that, immediately go into the land of Israel. Mish and Nisu, Ramses, from the time it went from Ramses is when they left Egypt, that was going out of Egypt, until they came to Risma. From Risma, that's where they sent the spies. There were 14 journeys. Like it says, V'achar niso'am mechatzerot. Afterwards, the people from Risma, they went to this place called Chatzerot. Shlach l'cha anashim. I'm sorry. From Chatzerot, they went to Risma, and that's when Moses sent the people, sent the spies. So if you count, you'll see that there were 14 journeys until they got to this place called Risma. Ritma. And here it says that they went there from Chatzerot v'yechanu b'Risma. This teaches you that they were in this place called Midbar Paran. So that was the 14 journeys they took before the decree. So the first year they went 14 journeys, and that was supposed to be it. That was all. So after the journey, it ends up, after the decree, so it ends up that they made 42 journeys minus 14. So that means 42 journeys minus 14 is 28 journeys, right? 28. The Od, Hotzimian, subtract another 8 journeys. Shoyu la'achar Mrs. Aaron, that was after Aaron died at Mehor Hahar till Arvos Moab. Arvos Moab was the final stop. This was already in the last year. So it comes out that in all of these interim years, 38 years, the Jews only went 20 journeys. 20 journeys. Zem Yisod, this we learned from so in 38 years, they only made 20 journeys. And you'll see that most of the time it says that they were camped. Most of the camps, so all these 20 journeys that they made, it wasn't like spread out. It was sort of like in one time. That's when these sort of Moshe, this book, rabbi called Moshe Hadarshan. And Rabbi Tanchuma in the Midrash, he said a little bit different. He said he explained it in a different way. He said it's like a metaphor, a comparison to a king that had a sick son. And he took him to a faraway place and he healed him. When they were coming back home, his father began to count all of the journeys. Remember, here we went to sleep. Here, Hukranu, Huk, Ranu Kan Hashash Ta Rosh, hear you, your head hurt you. It says here we slept, etc. Says also the same thing. This is the Siftei Chachamim. Said also, what's the point of it? Also, God, all these journeys, he said, remember you went this journey, remember went over here, remember what you did over there. Lashon miyaker. In other words, it was very dear to God. And that a sick person, he rests in certain places when you make him travel around. So the Jewish people were traveling through the desert all the time. It was like they were ill until they finally got healthy. And so he was reminding them of all the places that they stopped, etc., because it was very dear to God, these stops that they made. The Ramban has a little bit of a sort of different take on it. And let's learn that. But let's learn, first of all, here, let's learn a couple of others. First of all, here we have the Sforno. The Sforno says these are the journeys. What do you mean? God wanted they should write these journeys, Laodia, to advertise Zechutam, the merits of the Jews, because they went after God in the desert. Eretz Lo Zeru, on a place which was not planted, but Uyim Likanes, in order to prepare them to enter the land of Israel. That's why they went into the desert, was in order to prepare themselves, and the Jewish people went willingly, and they went along with this preparation. Okay, so we have so far three ways of looking at this. We have Rashi says it's coming to tell us of the kindness of God, that God, in the whole 38 years that they were traveling in the desert, they only really had to make 20 journeys. 20 journeys. There were 14 in the first year that we don't count, and there was 8 in the last year that we also don't count. So in the whole 38 years in the middle, Rabbi Tanchuma says a little bit differently. That God wants to, he was value every single stop that the Jewish people made, so he lists them all. The Baal HaTurim says that no, God, it's almost the same thing. God valued it very much, but he wanted to show the Jews what tremendous merit they had, to what degree they were willing to suffer in order to prepare themselves for entering the land of Israel. Here we have, that's the Sforno. Kli Ykar says, because Moses said before to Bnei Gad and Bnei Ruvain, remember that's what we learned right in the end of last week's Torah portion? Actually, we didn't learn that in class, but I hope you saw it in the synagogue. In the end of last week's Torah portion, the tribe of Ruvain and Gad came to Moses, and essentially they said, we don't want a part in the land of Israel. And Moses got all angry at them, and he said, how can you do that? You're going to discourage all the rest of the Jews. And they said, no, you misunderstood us. We want to go in and fight with everybody else. We'll conquer the land, and we relinquish our area to the other tribes, right? You can take our area and divide it among the other tribes. And we want area on this other side of the Jordan River. Or not on the side of Jordan River, which is on the western side, but on the eastern side. There's big plots of land over there. And that's what we want. Okay. So Moses was happy, he gave it to them. So when he gave this land, you might think, Shahayu Nadim Naim Ke Shochev Barosh Chevel. You might think that it was like the end of a rope. What does it mean? Like it's moving around. Lo shaktu velo nachu. Kol arba'im shana. You might think that now Moses is telling us that the Jewish people, they didn't rest the whole time. They were 40 years. They were like moving every day, right? Every day, like every year. Maybe they made 300 journeys every year because of 40 years. So they make thousands of journeys. Who knows? 1,200. It says no. Therefore, it says Elo Maseh to tell you that all the 40 years, they only took 42 journeys. And this also answers a question that why does it say Ela, that these are the journeys, and it doesn't say Ela Chanius? Why does it say these are the journeys? Why doesn't it say these are the encampments? I mean, the main thing is where they camped, not where they journeyed to. Asher Chanu. Just say that they moved from this place to that place, they moved from that. In other words, they camped over here, and we camped over there, we camped over here. They weren't talking about the camps. Why they mean talking about the movements? Because this movement, that was the journeys that they took. And the reason that it tells about all this, Rashi says, in order to let us know the kindness of God. But the Rav Amora, I think maybe it's the Mora Nevuchin, maybe he's referring to the Ramban. He gives a different reason. And also the Maria also gives many reasons, but we don't have to lengthen out on them. I forgot what the Maria was. What is it? I have to look it up. Just one moment. One moment. One moment. Maria, this is the Rev Yitzchak Abarbanel. Abarbanel, he wrote the explanation on the Torah. Look, at first night, that's what we're speaking of. Okay, let's do the Ramban. Ramban is pretty interesting. We don't have much time, but we'll see what we can do. He said after the Jewish people took revenge from Midian, God told Moses, and Moses, now has come the time for you to die. After the land of Sichon and Og was given to Reuven and Gad and the other cities that were there, and etc. So now it comes to let us know the kindness of God. That even though that they were in the desert, but don't think that they were going from place to place all the time. This is what Rashi said. But the time, B'kol Zaman, Hagadol, all this great time, they only went for 42 journeys. That's what Rashi says. Okay, that's what Rashi said. We just learned that. Why do we care? What do we have to know about this? It says, because there's a tremendous benefit to know this, because the amazing miracles. The amazing miracles that were done for our forefathers. 40 years they wandered in the desert, and anyone can see them. But in the future, when you hear about these things, maybe a person yechziva shemua me'otot Torah. Maybe a person might misunderstand the signs and the miracles of the Torah that were done, and say that they didn't really happen. It was just a story. But the fact is that it was true. I'm sorry. Yes, I just went back to the same line again. You might think, but these amazing miracles were really true. For instance, manna fell down every day. And it also, you have to know that where were the Jews? It tells you all these places to let you know that the Jews were all the time they were traveling far away from any settled place. And it's not natural for a person to be in a place where there's no planting and no trees, nothing whatsoever to eat, no bread, there was no wine, there was no, and for 40 years, this is a tremendous miracle when you see the places where they traveled. So Torah tells you, because you might think that that God did all these miracles. It wasn't really such big miracles, because they were, when they went in the desert, they were like a couple, a day or two away from some cities. They could all go there and they could buy things. They could buy things. There were maybe Arabs or whatever. And so it says no. So therefore, it says, that tells you where these places are, to know that God kept them purposely far away. The Jewish people were far away from any sort of a dwelling, a place where people lived, so that we would appreciate a bit the future generations would appreciate the great miracles that God did in these places for 40 years. Therefore, it writes all these names of the places where they were, and that's one of the reasons that God did it. In other words, when we check where these places were, we'll find that in fact it was far away from any sort of normal source of food. And you'll think, maybe the stories in the Torah are really true. God really did provide bread for them for 40 years. We notice an interesting thing. The next sentence says, "These are the journeys." Let's say it says Moses wrote the leaving points to their journeys according to God, and these are the journeys to their leaving points. What's going on over here? They left one place and they moved to another place. Then they moved from that place to another place. So each time that they moved, they left one place and they moved to another. So what's the main thing? Is the moving or the resting? What the camps are the main thing, or the journeys are the main thing? So it says both of them. These are the origins, the camping places where they went to their journeys, and then they made the journeys to the camping places. So both of them were the main thing. There's a lesson to be learned from each and every one: camping and the journeys and the travel. Okay, ready? Let's start some of these journeys in a short way. Vayis umi Ramses. Kli Ykar. Okay, maybe we can do one or two of these explanations. Why does it say these are the journeys to the places? It says, if the Jews had not sinned, this is a Kli Ykar. If the Jews had not sinned, they would have just taken one journey to the land of Israel. If you remember, as soon as they left Egypt, they wanted to go back, right? They were worried what was going to happen. They got to the 7 days after, they got to the Yam Suf, and they said, what did God take us out in order to kill us in the desert? So therefore, it says Moses wrote the origins to their journeys, because from the first journey they made, they really wouldn't have to camp anywhere. God wanted to take them, it says, Al Kanfei Neshurim, on like eagle's wings, to land of Israel immediately. Remember, we learned that in the Chassidut in the morning, in the Devar Malchut, that God wanted it that the Jews, as soon as they went over the sea, that immediately they would go to the land of Israel. That's what he wanted. And the third temple would come from heaven. Al Yadei Shekil Kuluba, because the Jewish people, they wrecked it all up, as it's necessary now to write, these are the journeys to their camps. Now they had the journey to all sorts of different camps and stopovers, that in the end they were going to have to just leave there again. So it should have been that they left Egypt and then they just traveled for the 7 days. Maybe they stopped every night, but that wasn't a really camp. They went immediately to Israel. So it was supposed to be just one journey. Instead, they had to make a journey to an encampment, and then when they camped, they had the journey again, and then going from place to place. And this was all according to what God wanted. Because God didn't really want this in the beginning, but because of the Jewish people sinned, so there had to be a leaving to a journey. That should have been enough. Going from Motzayim, they left Egypt and they journeyed, but then they had the journey to another stop over Motzayim, another stop. Okay, here we go. They left Egypt. The Jewish people left Egypt and they went to Ramses. Ramses was the exit place from Egypt. On the first month, the month of Nisan, on the 15th day of Nisan, that's Passover. Machar Pesach, the day after Passover, the Jewish people went out with a Yad Ramah, with a high hand, in front of all of the Egyptians. And the Egyptians were burying all those that God smote, all the firstborn, and also God made a how do you say defeated all of their gods. Turudim ba'avelam. God made it that the Egyptians were all busy burying their dead, so they didn't run after them. And then the Jewish people went from Ramses, they went to a place called Sukkot. They went from Sukkot, they camped in Eitan. They went from Eitan, they went to Piachirot. These are all these journeys that they took. These are the first, we said the first 14 journeys. Baal Tzafon. And they camped in front of this place called Migdal. They went from this place called Piachirot. Piachirot means the place of freedom, because no slave ever got. And they went to the sea, and they went 3 days in the desert, and they camped in a place called Mara. They were in Mara. They went to Alima. Alima, there were 12 wells of water and 70 palm trees, and they camped over there. Here it goes. And they went from Elim, and they camped on Yam Suf. Yam Suf, they crossed over. They went from Yam Suf, they camped in Midbar Sin. Now they're going to go to the Sinai. They're going to get the Torah. But Yisumi Midbar Sin, and they camped in Dovka. They went from Dovka, they went to Alush. They went from Alush, they camped in Refidim. And Refidim, the Jewish people didn't have water to drink. They went from Refidim, they camped in Midbar Sinai. Now they're coming to receive the Torah. Vayisumi Midbar Sinai, v'yachanu b'kivros ha'ta'ava. Remember Kivrot ha'ta'ava? There's a Jewish people that was with the Slav. But Yisub Kivrot ha'ta'ava, and they camped in Chatserot. They went from Chatserot, they went to Risma. They went from Risma, they went to Rimon Ports. They went from Rimon Ports, they went to Livna. They went from Livna, they went to Risa. They went from Risa, they went to Kehilatza. They went from Kehilatza, they went from Har Shofar. They went from Har Shofar, they went from Harada. They went from Harada, they went to Makelois. They went from Makelois, and they camped in Sochas. They went from Tochas, and they camped in Sorach. They went from Torach, and they camped in Miska. They went from Miska, they camped in Hashmona. They went from Hashmona, and they went from Moseros. From Moseros, Bnei Yakon, from Bnei Yakon, they went to Cher HaGrit God. From Cher HaGrit God, they went to Yad Basa. From Yad Basa, they went to Avrona. From Avrona, they went to Etzion Gover. From Etzion Gover, they went to Midbar Tzin, which is called Kadesh. They went from Kadesh, they went to Hoyer HaHor. That's where Aaron died. Ketzei Edom. And Aaron went up to Hor HaHar. This is already in the 40th year, according to God, and he died up there in the 40th year from the Jewish people leaving Egypt on the 5th month, month of Av. Oh, that's Rosh Chodesh Av. That's going to be this Friday. That's when Aaron died. The only person that says in the Torah clearly his date of passing away, Aaron. It says he died al pi Hashem. He died from the mouth of God, that he died with a kiss. It said God kissed him. And Aaron was 123 years old when he died on Har HaHor. Moses was 120, right? So Aaron was 3 years older. And that was when the Kanani Melech Arad, because when Aaron died, the clouds of glory went away, and he lived in the south. It says that was really it's Amalek. Rashi kind of, we heard that Aaron, when that was the news of that, caused the clouds of glory to go away, and the non-Jews thought, the enemies thought, now they could attack the Jews. Anyway, they went from Hor HaHor, where Aaron was, and they went to Salmona. Now he's going to be the last. Well, it was the last 8 journeys. They went from Salmona, they went from Punon. They went from Punon, and they went to Ovot. They went to Ovot, they went to Eye Gavrim Bilgvul Ma'av. And from Iyim, they went to Divon God. They went to Divon God, they went in Almon Divlasaima. They went from Alvan Divlasaima, they went to Hore Avarim in front of Nevo. Har Nevo. That's where Moses is going. Vayiso Mahara Avarim Vayachanu Ba'arvos Moav Al Yarden Yericho. Yarden Yericho is on the other side of Jordan. That's where they crossed over. On the other side of Jericho. They went the Avarim Besei Yeshimos until Eva Shitin Ba'arvos Moav, and that was Arvos Moav. Here he says, here we learn that how big were the Jewish people? 12 mil. How do you know? There's a way to calculate it. Rabbi Barachana, he said, I saw this place, etc. And Evel Shitim, this is the place of Shitim, but the name of it was Evel. Okay, so that was the 42 journeys, and we just went over them in a quick way. Good. Now let's learn one of the Pirkei Avot. See, maybe we can sort of finish here today. Okay, we'll tune off and we'll turn into Pirkei Avot.